Welcome to the Scaling Tech Podcast, where we help you manage your growing engineering team. Through expert interviews, we help you navigate the challenges of leading, hiring, growing, and nurturing your tech team to deliver the value your customers demand. Brought to you by agilityfeet.com, experts in staffing engineering teams in Latin America for clients globally.
The AI companion today, for example, can summarize a meeting, take notes, find all the action items, can send you an email at the end of the meeting, right? An email and a chat message at the end of the meeting, which people used to do. There used to be, there are still people who take notes. This enables people to have real-time conversation, focus on the conversation rather than like taking notes and stuff like that. And I would highly recommend using it. It's pretty cool, and it's more accurate nowadays. And the second part of it is like, let's say you are late to a meeting. You can use AI companion and query what happened in the meeting, and without interrupting people, right? So, hey, wait, everyone, stop your discussion. I want to know what happened, right? So you can rather ask AI companion to explain you what happened. And these features will help you be more productive and be more engaged in a meeting.
Welcome to the Scaling Tech Podcast, the podcast for leaders of growing software engineering teams. I'm Aaron Syme, here with my co-host, David Alfaro. David, what do you think about AI and the future of work? I mean, is this not the most momentous technical topic of our day?
It it felt that way, although I have to recognize that since March to now, it seems like the fever is going down. But because at the beginning is all this frenzy about we are going to lose our jobs,
Right.
uh, and taking the tremendous progress out of proportion. Because it is a good progress, as we are
Right.
going to see. Definitely we are experiencing a bonanza in a specific way of computer science, sorry, in a specific way of a specific aspect of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And the way I'm experiencing that is that I am more productive. I'm more
Yeah.
productive writing code. In fact, I can go to new languages now. I can do things beyond my scope of knowledge, and do more things. I can have my assistant being chat GPT, just asking questions, and I use it as well um, to navigate complex topics
Hmm.
about, hey, I mean, uh, using a local modem in my computer that is safe and not sending things to the cloud. I have conversations about business. Hey, I have this situation. What do you think about this thing? So it is a philosophical conversation sometimes. So I do feel that I am getting more productive. I can see how software developers will get more productive, and that has implication that we can expect more from
Yeah.
them in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think for me, uh, I feel like I'm just beginning to scratch the surface of the ways that this will impact my work, and my
Mhm.
thinking on things. But we certainly see it come up in the type of work we do, in the teams, and how our teams work, how our clients work. I mean, it's affecting everything for sure. I don't know exactly where we are on that hype curve, of it. I think we're what I would like to see at least is a very kind of rational view of way that this can be used to improve our work, and I think we're getting there. And so it's in our conversation today with Vijay from Zoom. I mean, we're talking with a major player here in the video chat market, to be sure, and in the business and enterprise market. They have a lot of influence in this, so it was very interesting to speak with Vijay. Uh, and because AI is a topic we've talked about before on the Scaling Tech podcast, but we haven't really dived into it for a full episode. And so, with Zoom being such a ubiquitous video conferencing tool, I was really excited to have this conversation with VJ and get the view from VJ and from Zoom on the AI and the future of work. And I think it was a great conversation. So, encourage you to stick around and hear what VJ says about the future of work. So let's get to our conversation. Vijay Parthasarathy is head of AI and ML at Zoom, where he is helping to pioneer Zoom's human centered innovations aimed at developing products that empower smarter experiences and workflows, easing everyday pain points and unleashing worker productivity, connectivity, and engagement. Prior to joining Zoom, he also worked as an engineering leader in AI and ML at Meta and Apple, where he led teams that built distributed machine learning frameworks. He was also a committer to the Apache Cassandra project, the open source NoSQL distributed database. He previously wrote a book on learning Cassandra for Pact Publishing. Welcome to the Scaling Tech Podcast, Vijay. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Really pleasure to have you. Obviously, Zoom has a huge position in the marketplace, a really interesting perspective to see the future of work. So let's start with a little bit of your high level view of AI and the progress that has been made in recent years. Would you say we're at a Oppenheimer type of moment where something destructive is unleashed on the global economy? Or are we about to unleash a new age of productivity and job creation? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think every two to 3 years, AI surprises people, right? So, and the pace of innovation has increased, not decreased. That's a good thing, right? So, in general, and the if you look back 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't expect what we see now. We wanted this 40 years ago, right? Well, the moment we have now, we wanted it 40 years ago, but the pace of innovation has definitely increased in the recent past. And are we in a situation where we have to be worried about? I don't know. I don't think the jobs are going to be taken in the next 2 to 3 years at least, right? Maybe there is one more innovation which has to happen. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, I think these models are getting really good at solving some specific problems. And the ability for it to create new jobs, new possibilities, the problems which were not being able to solve, we were not able to solve before, can be solved better now. So I'm super excited about this.
The the other day I was looking at a video of a university that was explaining that their program was has fully embraced ChatGPT. So they gave the first introductory explanation of how to go through the university was how to use ChatGPT to do every single homework and assignment. Uh, and that was fantastic. So basically, what we're saying is we are going to explain to you instead of you trying to get around us. We know that you're going to do it anyway, and we know the fact that you can have the time of being in the university by using ChatGPT. So we are embracing this.
Yeah.
So let's be upfront, and we're going to teach you how to use ChatGPT to actually you learn the topics that we are going to teach. So, what do you think of that approach to AI?
It's funny that you said this, right? So when I did my undergrad in India, right? So when I did my undergrad in India, it's all about memorization, right?
Okay.
So if you memorize the book, you will do well in the course. When I came to US, I did my grad when I was doing my MBA, masters, etc. Um, uh, the teacher said you can have an open book, right? So and it's most of the courses which I did was open book exams. It is about your understanding rather than your what is there in the book.
Mhm.
I, did I copy everything in the book or not is a question, right?
Right.
Did I understand it and reproduce it? Probably yes, right? So and I think these tools will enable that kind of a flow. That's my view. And you need to know what you need to ask these tools, right? So I think um, the courses are going to be much more interesting in the future.
Yeah,
I,
I
I, th-
like that.
I mean, um, it is a privacy concern uh, in when you are trying to apply that to the business,
Yeah.
to the corporate world. So something that I've done is that I install Llama 2 in a local computer.
Yeah.
So I downloaded the model. I downloaded the uncensored model, by the way, because I'm tired of being censored by
Llama
ChatGPT.
CPT,
For,
your friend.
yeah, yeah. And last, I, I think 2 weeks ago, I had a situation where I really, it was crucial for me to answer like 3 emails at the same time, different topics. It was urgent, and I was able to do it in a very decent way. I mean, it wasn't 100% me, but I did the editing and I made it mine, and I sent them. It was fine. It was
Yeah.
perfect. So I was hyper productive for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, it definitely works. I do that too. So
There's a good uh, a lot of people know the podcast Freakonomics, and they just had a good series on AI on it that I was listening to on the plane last week, and I thought it was I don't remember the economist's name, but there's an economist interviewed in one of the episodes who I thought had a really good perspective about this. He said instead of thinking about how we could build an AI that will play chess better than a human, we should be thinking about how we can build an AI that will help humans play better chess.
yep.
And I really liked that perspective of AI being something that enables us to go beyond what we might be able to do otherwise. It could just be, efficiency, like David was saying,
Yeah.
and answering critical emails very quickly. It could be applied to a lot of areas, but I like that perspective a lot. And
Yeah, I
I don't
like
know
the
that
I love that perspective. Like we are not in a competition. The AI is here to help you, right? So
that's exactly what an AI would say, Vijay.
hey, I am an AI. Didn't you realize?
What types of jobs do you think are at the stake most for disruption? And are there different ways that you think the kind of workforce in general should be adapting to this introduction of AI?
I don't. I think like I'm more optimistic on this. I believe most of the jobs will be um enhanced, and people will be more productive in doing their job rather and being more efficient and move on a higher level cognition to think about like what are the problems which are more important for them for the business, and try to solve them, and I think like e- right now, the way the tools are, it is going to augment your productivity, or it is going to augment what you do already, like the email writing example which David was talking about, creating a script for your podcast, right? So or coming up with questions, brainstorming with an AI to for you to be more productive. Think of it like a, um, a companion which will help you in day to day mundane tasks than something which is going to kill your job, right? So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now, for our listeners of the Scaling Tech Podcast, primarily engineering managers of growing technical teams, this is very relevant in technical workforces too. What's your perspective on the role of AI augmenting technical workforces specifically?
yeah, if you're talking about software developers, I think like earlier we used to have VIMs or Emacs and others, and then there was IDEs. Emacs was great. Vim was great. I'm not getting into that argument. So and just saying like there has been tools which has been introduced in the market. Every time there is a new tool which comes in, there is productivity gains, right? So there is autocomplete, compiling the smaller piece of code and then showing you feedback immediately. You don't need to write code perfectly on first time, right? I mean, back in the days when you punch the wrong card, you have to redo your whole program, right? I mean, that's a bug, right? So I mean, the productivity has improved quite a bit for software developers, and I think like this wave is interesting because it will help you write better code. It can help you write better code faster in your task. Writing better test cases, writing better documentation, right? So one of the good things is like you write the document first before you write the code. It brings a better code sanity and better understanding of the code, not only within the code, outside of the code too, right? I mean, are we there yet? No, but there are many startups and many companies working on these problems. These are very hard problems, and I'm pretty sure this will improve the productivity and help us focus on the problem in hand rather than like all the things we have to do, right? So
Yeah, I think a huge aid to developers, definitely making junior developers more advanced. You know, there's still a lot of value in the developer themselves and in their specific domain expertise of being able to pull these things together. But you know, I think I think it can be huge potential for the developers. I also think about other areas that engineering managers should be thinking about, and I'm sure companies are. Of, you know, how can we apply AI to like DevOps tasks, to monitoring and maintaining production systems, to predict when they're about to fail instead of notifying us after they fail, things along those lines. I think those are other areas that we're going to see a really wonderful increase in productivity and capability that engineering managers need to think about.
that's true.
Um, Now you've worked in AI at Zoom, Meta, and Apple. What's how has the landscape changed over your time? You've seen a lot in that time period, I imagine.
Yeah, it's hard to compare. I think like when back at Apple, we were more. I mean, when I talk to my users of the product, people usually ask about like, "Hey, I don't understand probability. Why does it do X? Why does it do Y?" The level of knowledge people had in the other side was like limited. So the data which was available was also limited, right? So and we were most of the choice, and we didn't know better, and we were using technologies, and our choices were more about explainable AI. The classical ML can do that, right? So and most of our choices were based on those constraints. Where at Meta, it was more about scale, right? So I have a ton of data. How do you train these models as soon as possible? And how can you retrain this model? You trained them one model, now you have to retrain it, and it has to be replicatable, etc. The now it's fast forward now, people are much more aware of AI. They understand the imperfections of AI, what it can do, what it cannot do, and which is a good news overall, right? As a whole industry, we are getting more and more aware of these technologies and tools which are available. Most of the developers might have already used ChatGPT. They know why. It's funny sometimes when it makes mistakes, we laugh, but back in the days, if it made a mistake, people will get offended, right? So I think we are getting into this golden age of AI, which can revolutionize a lot of things, right? So that's how I view it, and uh, every 2 years I get excited about these technologies, like and I was excited about autonomous cars too, right? So, but it does take a while for them to become mainstream.
What is the next thing that will happen in the next 2 years? I mean, the next boom. How about something? In your opinion, what would be? What would
I
it be?
think the multimodal models will
Oh,
be the key. right? I mean, right now most of these models are text based.
Mhm.
GPT-4 can read images, but like if you think about more than that, there is multiple modalities in human interaction, multiple sensory inputs. I think that's been. It's not like I'm thinking about it now. People have been thinking about it for multiple years or decades in the past. So that's the ultimate one, I believe. Not the ultimate, but that's one more step.
Yeah, yeah. Over the weekend, I was thinking about this. It's like it's I can see. I mean, I now experience all the power I can get. I'm happily for my cat. I can experience all the power I can get from text already, and I can see all the complexity, all the complex relationships, statistical relationships that uh, they can do is. I mean, it's fantastic. And when it comes to video, uh, I can. Over the weekend, I was having this little dancing getaway, and I was thinking I have so many videos in YouTube about doing specific routines or choreographies. If I had a ChatGPT for video, that I could just throw all the videos there, and now come back with a innovative choreography with these constraints and so on, and that's it. But we don't have that yet. I mean, we could achieve it by doing the transition to text first, and then
Yeah.
to the other part. But that is something that would be amazing, and I think that yeah, we are close to that.
Yeah, I think like there is a ton of activity in the field,
Right.
and we will get there. And one of the things, one of the examples I would say is like when I entered this podcast, I saw build, deploy, and value in Aaron's screen, and I immediately knew he was a software engineer, right? So. How do you know? He doesn't need to tell me he's a software engineer, right? So, um, or a
I love
software
it.
engineer or in tech field, right? So I get
Right.
that in the glance, right? So these models don't get that yet, right? So and the future is bright.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I agree with you completely, Vijay. I think that's a really interesting next step for this, to be able to process, audio directly. I mean, it's interesting when you look at tools now and APIs. We've used some of them that allow you to do transcription of, like a video call like this, right? And I'm sure this is something. I'd be curious, where are you going with Zoom on this? I would imagine it's on the roadmap, right? Um, but you have like live transcription and then transcription after a call. And one thing you see with APIs often is a difference in the quality of that, right? That during a live conversation, if you're trying to do auto captions immediately, there's going to be more errors with them. And I think people are generally accepting of that. They recognize that, there's going to be errors as it goes. Sometimes you'll see those captions sort of autocorrect as they go to. They can go back a few words and correct. That's interesting. And then a transcription on a recorded video after the conversation is done can be much much more accurate, right? So it's interesting to see that being done, and then imagine, that just being able to be improved as things are more multimodal in the LLMs. I mean, and one thing, this is a question I wanted to ask you about too, kind of the future of all of this is, um, David and I both speak multiple languages. David better than I do, but but I've heard people kind of half jokingly say that this like era in human history is maybe the last time to bother learning another new language, because soon we won't need to. Right? We'll have automatic translation going on, in a Zoom conversation, perhaps, right? In any sort of video chat, or maybe even with wearable devices in person, right? And we'll be able to hear that essentially transcription, but and then translation in real time immediately, and then maybe even through like a synthetic voice. I could imagine, me speaking in English here, but then, someone else hearing it in French or whatever, right? What's your view on that sort of AI advance? How close are we to that? Should I keep improving my Spanish, or should I stop at this point?
I think like it can help you learn Spanish faster. I think like I would say like transcription and translation is available in Zoom today. You can go try it out.
Mhm.
The thing which you mentioned about like it shows some text and then it corrects itself. The problem there is we are trying to optimize the latency of the word appearing in the screen.
Mhm.
We might not be accurate, but we wanted you to have a real-time conversation, right? If there are some tools, and even when we do it offline, we have the whole sentence context, so we can actually predict the sentence and the words properly, right? So and humans make many sounds, and it's very hard for you to for these systems to detect exactly what man-made sound to that word mapping or the classification. So what we do is like we try to predict what the person is saying, and once we have the whole sentence, we rewrite that. So that's why you see front and back.
Mhm.
So this is even harder in translation, right? So when you some languages have verbs and nouns in different places. So John did this versus this is what John and he did, right? So I mean the translation system has to take that into account and not make mistakes, because it can become much more offensive, right, when you display in the screen. So we try to not over predict the future. At the same time, we wanted to output what makes sense and what will keep the conversation going. So that's the challenge in live transcription. So when you talk about speech to speech translation, it's the cost of correcting is much higher, right? So humans do this interpretation, like if you go to big conferences, different delegates from different like government, European Parliament, for example, has multiple interpreters in different languages. So what they do is like they know they made a mistake, but the following sentences they go and correct it, so the
Mhm.
mistake doesn't reflect, right? If they make a mistake, some people never make mistake, they're superhuman, but it is what it is, right? So the challenge is like you cannot wait too long. If you wait too long, the context goes away, right? I mean, context of the conversation goes away, or there is no interactivity. So these models are getting really good at this, and if you try out our translation system, your luck might vary depending upon which language you talk, because some languages doesn't have a lot of data, but some languages do. There is also other challenges like dialects, cross-lingual terms, acronyms, numerical words. So all of this is harder problem which we are focusing on, and but these systems are getting really good at doing this.
Yeah,
At the basic.
it's pretty remarkable the advance in it. Certainly, so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it continues to play out. So let's talk a little bit more about how you're incorporating AI now into Zoom and sort of goals in the future. I My understanding is you have a goal at Zoom to make Zoom meetings more productive than an in-person meeting, which I think is a fascinating goal. Can you talk a little bit more about how those will be made more intelligent meetings when remote?
Yeah. Uh, I think like we recently announced AI Companion. There is more to come, right? So more features to come in AI Companion. So the AI Companion today, for example, can summarize a meeting, take notes, find all the action items, can send you an email at the end of the meeting, right? Email and a chat message at the end of the meeting, which people used to do. There used to be, I mean, there are still people who take notes. So this enables people to have real-time conversation, focus on the conversation rather than like taking notes and stuff like that. And I would highly recommend using it. It's pretty cool, and it's more accurate nowadays. And the second part of it is like, let's say you are late to a meeting. You can use AI Companion and query what happened in the meeting, and without interrupting people, right? So, hey, wait, everyone, stop your discussion. I want to know what happened, right? So you can rather ask AI Companion to explain you what happened. And these features will help you be more productive and be more engaged in a meeting. All of these two features which I talked about, and plus writing an email, like what David wanted, or writing a chat message, a lengthy chat message, hopefully not a short one, is already available in today. I mean, if you sign up for all paid customers, it's included in your Zoom subscription. There are a bunch of other solutions we are looking at. Like, I mean, there's more to come. Like, can this AI companion help you prepare for a meeting, right? So, can it automatically create your agenda? Can it look through your documents and come up with like some list of conversational items which needs to be discussed in this meeting? Uh, can this chat message be? There is a quick reply which is already there, going to be announced soon, and sentence completion. All of this together help you be more productive. Is what coming next.
Building custom WebRTC video applications is hard, but your go live doesn't have to be stressful.
We thought we were ready to launch our video application, but we discovered it's a lot harder than we thought. Live video applications are not like building other web or mobile apps. Our team worked hard out there today, but we just didn't have all the right pieces. I'll tell you what we should have done. We should have brought in the live video experts from WebRTC Ventures.
If you're building a live video application, then trust the experts at WebRTC.Ventures to help you design, build, test, deploy, and manage your custom-built application, or integrate live video into your existing application. Contact us today at WebRTC.Ventures.
Yeah, it's fascinating to imagine what this may look like in a few years, where that AI companion is helping us prior to the meeting, it's helping us during the meeting, and then after the meeting, it's drafting the emails, the presentations, the follow-ups. You already see in tools, in some tools for where to, like, AI tools that will look at your, say, video, like a video that we create from this recording for the Scaling Tech podcast, and automatically help you pull out marketing clips and suggest text to put with those clips and post it to your social media. I mean, it's, that's a really interesting example to me of where it's, a great example of not replacing a job, because I don't have someone necessarily doing as much of that as I would like now, so much as enabling us to do more of it, even as a small organization, allowing us to be more efficient in our work, more creative in our work. So yeah, I think it's really interesting to see these things playing out. What do you think about features like say, sentiment analysis? We've worked with like voice and contact centers in some of our work, and so sentiment analysis is an interesting thing there for seeing, like, is the customer service agent, or is the customer happy or angry when they come into the call versus at the end of the call after hopefully their issue's been resolved. Do you see a place for tools like that in a more general purpose meeting tool like Zoom?
Yeah, so we have this Zoom Virtual Agent, or the ZCC, Zoom Contact Center product. And we also have this Zoom Revenue Accelerator product. If you look at, like, there, we have these scores. For example, in a sales call, people are not screaming at each other, but in a contact center call, they are probably, right. So, and there is. I mean, in those specific use cases, it makes more sense for us to monitor those and up level those metrics. And I think, like, the multimodal systems there might play much better, because in a sales call, how do you measure a sentiment, right? So the sentiment is always going to be neutral, or excited. Right. So their persuasion makes more sense. How persuasive the salesperson is, right? So
Right.
I mean, it's a little bit of a different of a problem. There is also Zoom Revenue Accelerator, engagement metrics is more interesting. Are they asking enough questions? Are they ask how long is the interaction, right? So
Mhm.
um, and in a contact center setup, it's the other way around, right? I mean, are they asking the right question, right? So did they check the identity of this person before they go in, right? So
Right.
different use cases, different setup, I guess. So, and these models are getting really good at this too, right? And hopefully you'll see more in the future.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about from like a technical or an architectural perspective, how much of AI in Zoom is done on the server side versus deployed in the client or in the edge? How do you implement things like this in a real time
Yeah.
conversation?
Yeah, this is a great question, especially to Zoom, because Zoom is unique in this, right? So, if you talk about virtual background, audio cancellation, audio suppression, noise cancellation, these are all AI models, and they run in the edge in your client, right? So,
Mhm.
it's an interesting mix because, like, we don't want to take all your CPU, but at the same time, if we do it in the client, it enhances privacy, enhances the responsiveness of your system.
Mhm.
And more expensive models, more expensive meaning more computationally intensive models, are run in the cloud. Like, for example, large language models, or we have our own large language models. We also use third party language models. We have ASR, machine translation, and others, right? So it's better deployed in the cloud. So we look at the problem and look at like how we can enhance our user experience and decide what to do.
And what about behind the scenes? How much are you using AI behind the scenes in Zoom?
Um, like
I'm
the
thinking.
primary use case at Zoom is video, right? I mean,
Mhm.
there is a bunch of algorithms which run behind the scene to monitor your bandwidth, your background conditions, etc., and optimizes the experience, right? So to I mean, there are algorithms in the client, algorithms in the server, which actually makes your experience much better, right?
Mhm.
So behind the scene, I can talk about that connectivity, but like there is also other models which are really behind the scene, behind the back end of back end of back end. There are a bunch of models which enhances the experience.
Excellent. You talked about Zoom in the contact center, which also makes me think of another very common use case that we see for AI these days in conversational AI and like customer support chatbots and stuff like that. How much of that is integrated now in the type of work that you do, or do you see that being used? And kind of what's the role for conversational AI in a setup like in a scenario like Zoom's use cases?
Yeah, so I think, like I mentioned earlier, chat conversational interface is pretty interesting interface. It's new, right? I mean, you can interact with the computers using conversation, pure conversation. That's exciting, right? So you have one more modal. I mean, one more way of communicating with the computers, right?
Mhm.
So it is definitely going to be very interesting. When you're talking about contact center, the interaction with the chatbot needs to be grounded. Like, for example, if I have an issue with the ISP, I would rather chat with the ISP rather than I call them and talk with them, right? So that's me, right? So
Mhm.
when we do that, the ISP that chatbot needs to have the latest and greatest information about me. It has to be grounded to what it can answer and what it cannot answer, right? So and though that's where like the traditional chatbots, like the technology which was used for Alexa or back in the days, or Siri back in the day is more useful, identifying the intent of the user and then trying to take the user through a flow, right? So and that flow is much more defined by the enterprises. What we did with the ZVA, the Zoom Virtual Agent, a few months ago or a year ago, was like to make the intents which are not configured to be answered from your knowledge base article. So it is grounded to the knowledge base article, and the generation is by a large language model, right? So if you detect a intent, we send it through the flow. If you don't detect the intent, and if it's a much more open-ended and can be answered from your knowledge base article, you can be answered, right? So it can also pull your status and a whole bunch of things, right? So
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and something I think is very important in enterprise AI is being able to do things like integrate your own custom knowledge base into it,
mm,
and then look at how you combine that with a more general purpose LLM like a Chat GPT to help you provide more conversational answers around it instead of just regurgitating a link to a particular FAQ page. But obviously, you still need that input. Um, and that brings me to another, I think, a really important question in this space, and particularly important, I think, in enterprises uh, use cases. How is data privacy addressed in AI at Zoom, and kind of what have you learned that you would recommend to others implementing an LLM into their business practice?
yeah. So recently we made a public statement that we don't use audio, video, screen sharing, chat, or any type of poll or any type of content and in the meeting to train our ML models, or we allow our third parties to train their ML models either, right? So
Hmm.
and we take privacy seriously, right? And we do believe in responsible AI development, right? So and I think like the good thing about these large language models is it requires a very less domain specific data for it to learn something or output something which is more meaningful and more accurate. Zoom is taking that position, and I would recommend everyone else in the industry to take the same position.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, and obviously incredibly important, especially when you're working with businesses. They're going to be speaking about confidential information in the conversations they have on Zoom. They don't want that shared across other organizations or fed into your model. There's a flip side of that too that I could imagine in terms of like future features that you might have of being able to um, learn from meetings over the course of time. So I don't know if there's a way that that you might see that sort of thing being partitioned to, like an enterprise user of Zoom being able to have the model learn from prior meetings and be able to say, actually, this topic was covered in this meeting. Would you like to review the notes from it or something like
Yeah.
that? Right? We've discussed this before, and there's some interesting challenges and opportunities there from a privacy perspective too. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
so you can solve that problem in two ways, right? One is retrieval. You can constantly retrieve the system to augment the generation, right? So basically, you're looking at the past information to see if there is any future information can be generated, right? So, or you can go in the other direction of like creating specific models for personalized specific models, right? So and or you can go in between, like you create a delta model which is more personalized for you, right? So we did look into all of that. I think like that's a very powerful personalization is a very powerful way to make, like, for example, meeting summaries, right? So if you take meeting summaries, um, if you ask a person to summarize a meeting, let's say I ask Aaron to summarize a meeting, or David to summarize a meeting, or Vijay to summarize a meeting, the summaries will be much different because that is more of your take on that meeting rather than like a generic take, right? A generic take
Sure.
will be more expensive to cover all the three of this view, right? So is that I mean, when you have this personal experience, you will save more time with all of these products. Hope that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that just made me think of, we were talking about sentiment analysis earlier. It would be interesting if my meeting summary noted that I was particularly excited when Vijay said this. So that was my big takeaway from the conversation, perhaps. Whereas, you know, David was not in that part of the conversation. He was more excited here. And so that part of the meeting maybe was more relevant to him, right? That's an interesting spin where you could go with some of this too. How I could also imagine. I'm curious what you think. How personal can you imagine the AI assistant being in this? I mean, everything we're talking about so far now is kind of like a text based thing, right? Or an email summary afterwards. And, maybe you're seeing something like transcription or translation scrolling through on your screen, but it's still ultimately in a text format. With the rise of some other very relevant technologies around synthetic voices, and then combined with generative AI and conversational AI, and maybe even digital humans and high quality avatars and stuff, I can imagine a lot of fascinating scenarios where maybe um, our 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 AI companion in the call has an actual persona associated with them. And if I say something that it doesn't quite catch in the transcription, maybe it even interrupts and says, "Aaron, could you repeat that part? Did you say this or this?" Right? Like an actual sort of assistant in a conversation might do. I mean, how far can you see this going?
Actually, it's funny you ask. I think like um, we announced a virtual coach beginning of this year. So the idea of virtual coach is that, right? I mean, you will be able to interact with a virtual person, which is a large language model behind the scene, and it's given a script of asking questions or asking something, and then analyzing your answers and then giving you a score, right? So there are multiple. I mean, if you want to like do a virtual podcast without real hosts, and I want you to ask random questions, I wanted to answer it. It's a place where that will be more fun, and that's coming to meetings too eventually, right? So I don't know when, but it's eventually coming to the meetings. But right now we are targeting the sales team, which who can actually practice their pitches, sales pitches with the virtual coach, and sales enablement team basically. I hope that
Yeah,
makes sense to you.
yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, sales enablement, I think, is huge. Um,
The, I want to go back to the first time I met Zoom.
Mhm.
Uh, it was many years ago, and I remember I fell in love because two important things. Uh, Zoom understood the most fundamental use of the tool, and for me, it should be a reliable video call.
Yeah.
So I remember suffering trying to use Skype. It
Yeah.
was just a nightmare.
Mhm.
Um, and then simple, easy to use. And I love that. It is just a link, you click it and it works. it's just it reminded me of the time when I met Google for the first time. It was clean, it worked. it was I mean it was clean. It was fundamental. It kept the fundamentality. So when you mentioned that what the work that you do using ML uh, in the backend, sorry, in the backend is, and you mentioned noise cancellation, bandwidth optimization, uh, video streaming routing optimization based on the location of the. So now I can see why it always feels like it's perfect. It's because you really get what is the real value of a video call. So I felt that way. Now, now that you mentioned that you actually are using AI or machine learning to do all this wonderful work that it's it's transparent for the user. The user only enjoys. Um, and then all the work that you're doing to bring more AI to the user experience, it makes me think of something that is going on around the world. Is that companies are scrambling to buy chips, GPUs, and that is becoming. I mean, computing power basically. I mean, the more computing power you have, the more chances you have to overcome the competition. So now I'm getting to my question. I think it is in this video call war. Let's not call it war. I mean, the competition in the market of video call products, that Zoom is not alone in there. And remembering that what is important here is the fundamentality of the service, what is actually the value it gives. Um, how are you seeing Zoom winning this war or keeping being at the top? In my opinion, he's at the top still. Uh, how do you see that happening in the future? I
So
mean,
I think
being
like AI is a big bet for us.
okay.
We are betting heavily on AI, and I think like improving productivity of people. A lot of different types of calls happen in this platform. And if you look at like a work 8 hours work, there is many meetings which happens during that 8 hours work, and we believe we can make people more productive in these calls, before the call, during the call, after the call, and having a continuous conversation after that with our chat products and whatnot, right? So people I mean, right during the beginning of the pandemic, or before the pandemic, we were transforming ourselves into a video product to video platform, right? So we have more products like chat, contact center, phone, and there's more to come. Like you'll hear a lot more in the next few weeks. So those products together will enhance the experience of the user. So that's what we are focusing on. In terms of like the competition, we do better than others. So that's how we are going to win.
Fair enough.
Well, we're nearing the end of our time here. David, do you have any other final questions?
No, I'm happy. I mean, this was a very interesting conversation. Thank you, PJ. It was fantastic.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you very much, Vijay. Yeah, really enjoyed the conversation and your insights from the perspective of Zoom and your vast experience in this field. Thanks so much for joining us on the Scaling Tech podcast. Is there anywhere that you would direct our listeners to get more information about you or your work or the advances coming up at Zoom?
I would recommend people to use it. Go to zoom.us, download the client, get in a call, use our products, and I'm pretty sure you will love it. And if you don't, let us know. You'll figure out a way to reach out to us. And when you do, and remember, like we always take every customer feedback very seriously, and that's the DNA of the company. So thank you very much, and I enjoyed this conversation too. Thank you.
It was a real pleasure speaking with you, Vijay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks for joining us on the Scaling Tech podcast, where we help you manage your growing engineering team. Brought to you by agilityfeet.com, experts in staffing engineering teams in Latin America for clients globally. For more information on today's episode and to submit your ideas for future guests, please visit scalingtechpod.com.